Grandson of slaves, son of a sharecropper, abandoned by his father at age 1. He fought racism in the Army 11 years before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. He received death threats every single day. Pitchers threw at his head. Runners slid into him trying to cut his legs open, and he couldn't fight back. He had promised he wouldn't. His number is the only one retired across all of baseball. Every April 15th, every player in the majors wears 42. His name is Jackie Robinson, and this is the story of the bravest man to ever play the game. Jack Roosevelt Robinson was born on January 31st, 1919, in Cairo, Georgia, a small town in the Deep South where cotton fields stretched to the horizon and the legacy of slavery still cast a long shadow. The town's name was pronounced differently than the Egyptian capital. Jackie's middle name honored former President Theodore Roosevelt, who had died just 25 days before Jackie was born. It was a name that spoke to aspiration, the belief that greatness was possible even in the most humble circumstances. Jackie was the youngest of 5 children born to Jerry Robinson and Mallie Robinson. His siblings were Edgar, Frank, Matthew, who everyone called Mac, and Willa Mae. The family worked as sharecroppers on a plantation, barely scraping by on land they would never own, growing crops that would never make them rich. Before Jackie turned 2, his father Jerry abandoned the family, leaving Mallie to raise 5 children alone in the Jim Crow South. It was 1920, and opportunities for a black woman in rural Georgia were virtually non-existent. The Robinsons were destitute. But Mallie Robinson was not a woman who accepted limitations or surrendered to despair. She made a decision that would change the trajectory of her family's history forever. Mallie gathered her children, along with some of her relatives, and boarded a train heading west. They were joining the Great Migration, the mass movement of millions of African Americans fleeing the violence and oppression of the Jim Crow South in search of better lives in the North and West. The journey took 12 days. When it ended, the Robinson family found themselves in Pasadena, California, a world away from the cotton fields of Georgia. The family settled into a small house at 121 Pepper Street in Pasadena. It was a predominantly white neighborhood, and the Robinson family was not welcomed. Neighbors called the police on them constantly, filing complaints about noise, about the children, about anything they could think of. Racial slurs were hurled at the children when they walked to school. Someone burned a cross on their lawn. Pepper Street was not safe for them. But Mallie Robinson refused to be driven out. She had not traveled 3,000 miles to be intimidated. She worked as a domestic, cleaning houses and doing laundry for white families, often working extended hours to keep her own family fed. When welfare officials came to check on the family, Mallie made sure her children were clean and presentable, even if their clothes were patched and worn. Jackie later recalled watching his mother work tirelessly, never complaining, and thinking she must have possessed some kind of magic to hold everything together. Robinson later wrote in his autobiography that he thought she must have some kind of magic to be able to do all the things she did, to work so hard and never complain, and to make us all feel happy. That work ethic, that refusal to quit, that determination to succeed against all odds, these were the lessons Mallie Robinson passed on to her children. And nowhere would they be more evident than in her youngest son. Growing up in Pasadena, Jackie and his siblings found their escape in athletics. Sports were a way out of the poverty that surrounded them, a way to prove their worth in a society that told them they were worthless. And it quickly became clear that the Robinson children had extraordinary natural talent. Jackie's older brother, Mac, was perhaps the first hint of greatness in the family. A gifted sprinter, Mac Robinson earned a spot on the 1936 United States Olympic team. He traveled to Berlin, Germany, and competed in the Olympic Games while the Nazi regime tried to use the event to prove Aryan supremacy. Mac finished second in the 200-meter dash, beaten only by the legendary Jesse Owens, who won 4 gold medals at those games. Mac came home with a silver medal and a world record time, having proven on the world stage that black athletes could compete with anyone. But this was still America in 1936. Despite his Olympic triumph, despite representing his country at the highest level of athletic competition, The only job Mac could find when he returned to Pasadena was sweeping streets. He would push his broom through downtown wearing his Olympic sweatshirt with USA emblazoned on the front. A bitter and constant reminder of how little his achievement meant in a segregated society that refused to see Black excellence. Jackie watched all of this. He saw his brother, an Olympic medalist, reduced to menial labor because of the color of his skin. He learned early that Black excellence was no guarantee of equal treatment, and that lesson would shape his understanding of America for the rest of his life. At John Muir High School in Pasadena, Jackie Robinson began to establish himself as something special. He was a star in football, basketball, baseball, and track. He was not just good, he was dominant. By January 1937, the local newspaper declared that Robinson for 2 years had been the outstanding athlete at Muir, starring in football, basketball, track, baseball, and tennis. He was the kind of player who made opponents nervous just by stepping onto the field. After high school, Robinson enrolled at Pasadena Junior College in 1937, and his legend only grew. He broke his brother Mac's broad jump record with a leap of 25 feet, 6.5 inches, a new American junior college record. On the football field, he scored 131 points in a single season and gained more than 1,500 yards, drawing thousands of fans to junior college games who came just to watch him play. In baseball, he batted .417. He made the all-conference team in basketball. The local sports writers were running out of superlatives. One writer called Robinson the best all-around athlete on the coast. In the fall of 1939, Robinson transferred to UCLA on an athletic scholarship. The university's student population was less than 1% African American at the time, and there was not a single Black faculty member. Robinson would be entering a world that barely acknowledged his existence, except on the playing field. At UCLA, Jackie Robinson became the first athlete in school history to letter in 4 varsity sports: football, basketball, track, and baseball. To this day, more than 80 years later, he remains the only UCLA athlete to accomplish that feat. No one else has even come close. On the football field, Robinson was a sensation. He played in the backfield alongside fellow Black players Woody Strode and Kenny Washington, making the 1939 UCLA Bruins the most integrated major college football team of its era. Robinson led the NCAA in punt return average in both 1939 and 1940. He finished the 1939 season averaging 12.2 yards per carry, a school record that still stands today. That team went undefeated, finishing 7th in the final Associated Press poll. In basketball, Robinson led the Pacific Coast Conference in scoring in both 1940 and 1941. In track and field, he won the 1940 NCAA championship in the long jump, making him and his brother Mac the first siblings to each win NCAA titles. Ironically, baseball was Robinson's weakest sport at UCLA. He batted just .97 in his only season, though in his very first college game he went 4 for 4 and stole home twice. Speed and daring would always be his trademarks. It was also at UCLA where Robinson met the woman who would become his partner for life. Rachel Isom was a 17-year-old freshman nursing student when she first encountered the famous athlete on campus in the fall of 1940. Their courtship was slow and sometimes rocky. Robinson was shy and proud. Rachel was focused on her studies. But a deep connection formed between them, a bond built on mutual respect and shared values that would sustain them both through the trials ahead. In the spring of 1941, just a few units short of his degree, Robinson made the difficult decision to leave UCLA. His family needed money, and he did not believe a college degree would help a Black man find work in America. "I was convinced that no amount of education would help a Black man get a job," Robinson later wrote. "I felt I was living in an academic and athletic dream world." The fate of his brother Mac, an Olympic silver medalist sweeping streets, was never far from his mind. After leaving UCLA, Robinson briefly worked odd jobs, including a stint as an assistant athletic director with the National Youth Administration. He was in Hawaii playing football for the semi-professional Honolulu Bears when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. That attack changed everything. In April 1942, as America mobilized for World War II, Jackie Robinson was drafted into the United States Army. He was sent to Fort Riley, Kansas, and assigned to a segregated cavalry unit. Robinson applied for officer candidate school, but his application was delayed for months, not because he was not qualified, but because he was black. The official Army policy was supposed to be race neutral, but in practice, few black soldiers were admitted to officer candidate school. It took intervention from heavyweight boxing champion Joe Louis, who was also stationed at Fort Riley, to break the logjam. Louis used his fame and influence to pressure Army leadership. Robinson graduated as a second lieutenant in January 1943. He was assigned to the 761st Tank Battalion, an all-black unit that would later become known as the Black Panthers and distinguish itself in combat in Europe. But the military proved to be just as segregated as civilian life, and Robinson was not a man who accepted injustice quietly. In July 1944, Robinson was transferred to Camp Hood in Texas, where racial tensions ran high. On the evening of July 6, 1944, Robinson boarded an Army bus. He was with Virginia Jones, the light-skinned wife of a fellow black officer. They sat together in the middle of the bus. The bus driver, looking in his rearview mirror and seeing what appeared to be a black man sitting with a white woman, was incensed. He stopped the bus and ordered Robinson to move to the back, where the colored people belong. Robinson refused. He knew that the Army had recently desegregated military buses on Army posts. He knew his rights, and he was not going to surrender them to satisfy a racist bus driver. The confrontation escalated. Robinson was taken into custody and charged with multiple offenses, including insubordination and public drunkenness, despite the fact that Robinson did not drink alcohol at all. His court-martial began on August 2, 1944. The trial lasted 4.5 hours. Robinson faced an all-white panel of 9 Army officers who would decide his fate. Against the odds, they found him not guilty on all charges. Robinson received an honorable discharge in November 1944. In a letter during the ordeal, he wrote, "I don't mind trouble, but I do believe in fair play and justice." 11 years later, on December 1, 1955, Rosa Parks would refuse to give up her seat on a city bus in Montgomery, Alabama, and the modern civil rights movement would ignite. But Jackie Robinson had already fought that battle in an Army courtroom in Texas when almost no one was watching. After his discharge, Robinson was at a crossroads. He was 25 years old, without a college degree, and uncertain about his future. In the spring of 1945, he joined the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro American League as a shortstop. He was paid $400 per month, good money for the Negro Leagues, but a fraction of what white major leaguers earned. Robinson quickly proved himself one of the best players in black baseball. He batted .311 in 47 games and earned a spot in the East-West All-Star Game, the Negro League's equivalent of the World Series. His speed, his aggressive base running, and his competitive fire made him a standout. But Robinson was frustrated by the conditions of Negro League life, the endless bus rides across the country, the segregated hotels that would not give them rooms, the restaurants that refused to serve them, the constant grinding indignities of being black in America. He longed for something more. What he did not know was that someone very important was watching him. Branch Rickey had been the president and general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers since 1942. He was a complex man, a devout Methodist who quoted the Bible frequently, a brilliant baseball executive who had pioneered the modern farm system, and a businessman who understood that tapping into black talent could give his team a competitive edge. Rickey had been secretly scouting Negro League players for years, building a list of candidates who might be able to break baseball's color barrier, which had been firmly in place since the 1880s, when an unwritten agreement among team owners had driven black players from the major leagues. Rickey was not just looking for the best player. He was looking for a man with exceptional talent, unimpeachable character, the courage to face abuse, and most importantly, discipline to channel his anger into excellence rather than confrontation. He found all of these qualities in Jackie Robinson. On August 28, 1945, Robinson was summoned to the Brooklyn Dodgers office at 215 Montague Street in Brooklyn. He believed he was being scouted for a new Negro League team. What followed was one of the most important meetings in American history. For 3 hours, Rickey and Robinson sat across from each other. Rickey revealed his true purpose. He wanted Robinson to break the color barrier and play for the Brooklyn Dodgers. But first, he needed to know if Robinson could handle what was coming. Rickey acted out scenarios Robinson might face. He pretended to be a racist hotel clerk refusing Robinson a room, a waiter who would not serve him, an opposing player sliding into him with spikes high while calling him every slur imaginable, a fan threatening to kill him and his family. Robinson listened to it all. Then he asked, "Mr. Rickey, are you looking for a Negro who is afraid to fight back?" Rickey's answer would define their partnership. "I am looking for a ball player with guts enough not to fight back." It was a hard thing to ask. Robinson had spent his entire life fighting back against racism, against injustice, against anyone who tried to tell him he was less than. Now he was being asked to absorb abuse without responding, at least for the first few years. Robinson agreed. He understood that the stakes were bigger than his own pride. On October 23, 1945, the signing was announced. Jackie Robinson would play for the Montreal Royals, Brooklyn's top minor league affiliate, for the 1946 season. The great experiment had begun. On February 10, 1946, Jackie and Rachel were married. They had been engaged for years, their wedding delayed by the war and uncertainty. Now they would face this challenge together. Spring training in Florida was brutal. Jim Crow was the law of the land, and Robinson was not allowed to stay with his teammates or eat in the same restaurants. Games were canceled rather than allow a black man to take the field. But Montreal was different. The city, with its French-Canadian culture and distance from American-style racism, welcomed Robinson in a way few American cities would have. Rachel later remembered that they never had a threatening or unpleasant experience there. The people were so welcoming. On the field, Robinson was spectacular. He led the International League with a .349 batting average. He scored 113 runs and drove in 66. He was named the league's most valuable player and led the Royals to the minor league championship. When the Royals won the title, Montreal fans flooded onto the field and hoisted Robinson onto their shoulders. One sports writer noted that it was probably the first time in history a black man had to run from a white mob because they loved him. Branch Rickey had found his man. Jackie Robinson was ready for the major leagues. On April 15, 1947, Jackie Robinson walked onto the grass at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. He took his position at first base, a new position for him, since shortstop and second base were his natural spots. The crowd numbered 26,623. An estimated 14,000 were African American, many having traveled from across the country to witness history. Black fans had come from Harlem, from Philadelphia, from the Deep South, just to see a black man play Major League Baseball. Robinson was the first black player in Major League Baseball since Moses Fleetwood Walker in 1884, more than 60 years earlier. The color line that had stood for over 6 decades was finally being challenged. In his first at-bat, Robinson grounded out. He went hitless in 3 at-bats that day, but he reached base on an error and scored what proved to be the winning run. It was just the beginning. Robinson's first season was a trial by fire, one of the most intense ordeals any athlete has ever faced. The abuse came from everywhere. Robinson received stacks of death threats, letters promising to kill him if he took the field. Hotels refused to let him stay with his teammates. Restaurants would not serve him. Some of his own teammates circulated a petition refusing to play alongside a black man. A petition quashed only when Dodgers manager Leo DeRocher told the players they could go to hell if they did not like it. On the field, opposing players threw pitches at his head. They slid into him with spikes high, trying to cut his legs. Philadelphia Phillies manager Ben Chapman led his team in racist abuse so vile that it shocked even hardened baseball men. The Phillies dugout called Robinson every slur in the book, suggested he go back to the cotton fields, made monkey noises. Robinson had promised Rickey he would not fight back. And so he did not. He absorbed the hatred and channeled it into his performance. "Plenty of times I wanted to haul off when somebody insulted me for the color of my skin," Robinson later said. "But I had to hold to myself. I knew I was kind of an experiment. The whole thing was bigger than me." Not everyone abandoned him. Shortstop Pee Wee Reese, a Southerner from Louisville, Kentucky, became one of Robinson's closest allies, a gesture of support. In one famous moment when fans were heckling Robinson mercilessly, Reese walked over from his position at shortstop and put his arm around Robinson's shoulder. The gesture said everything. "This is my teammate, and I stand with him." Reese and Robinson became lifelong friends. On the field, Robinson answered his critics the only way he could, with excellence. He batted .297 with 175 hits. He scored 125 runs. He led the National League with 29 stolen bases. He hit 12 home runs and drove in 48 runs. He helped lead the Dodgers to the National League pennant. At the end of the season, Jackie Robinson was named the winner of the first-ever Rookie of the Year award, an honor that would later be renamed in his honor. The Brooklyn Dodgers faced the New York Yankees in the 1947 World Series. Robinson became the first black player to appear in the Fall Classic. Though the Dodgers lost in 7 games, Robinson had proven beyond any doubt that black players could compete at the highest level. The door that had been closed for 60 years had finally been forced open. With the initial barrier broken and his position established, Robinson was finally free to be himself, fiery, competitive, outspoken, and unwilling to accept injustice quietly. In 1949, Jackie Robinson had the greatest season of his career. Working with Hall of Famer George Sisler, who had been hired as an advisor to the Dodgers, Robinson transformed his batting approach. Sisler taught him to stop lunging at pitches, to hit the ball to right field, and to wait for his pitch. The results were spectacular. He won the National League batting title with a .342 batting average, the highest of his career. He led the league with 37 stolen bases. He drove in 124 runs and scored 122. He was named to the All-Star team for the first of 6 consecutive seasons. At the end of the season, Jackie Robinson was named the National League's most valuable player, the first black player in history to receive that honor. Robinson was not just a great hitter. He was a dynamic, electrifying presence who brought a new style to baseball. His aggressive base running terrorized pitchers. He would dance off the bases, fake steals, and unnerve everyone around him. He stole home 19 times in his career, including once in the World Series. From 1949 through 1954, Robinson was named to 6 consecutive All-Star teams. He helped lead the Dodgers to 6 National League pennants. But the ultimate prize, a World Series championship, kept slipping away. Year after year, the Dodgers fell short, often losing to the New York Yankees. Brooklyn fans developed a bitter refrain, "Wait till next year." Finally, in 1955, next year arrived. The Dodgers faced the Yankees yet again in the World Series. The pattern seemed set. The Dodgers would compete heroically and then lose. They had lost to the Yankees in 1947, 1949, 1952, and 1953. No Brooklyn team had ever beaten the Yankees in a World Series. In Game 1, Robinson did something that epitomized his entire career. With Brooklyn trailing and Whitey Ford on the mound, Robinson broke for home plate. He slid under Yogi Berra's tag, or did he? Berra argued furiously, insisting Robinson was out. The umpire disagreed. Robinson was safe. He had stolen home in the World Series. The Yankees won that game, but the series was far from over. Brooklyn won 3 of the next 4 games to force a Game 7 at Yankee Stadium. Robinson, now 36 years old and battling injuries, did not start the final game. But his teammates finished the job. Johnny Podres pitched a shutout, and the Brooklyn Dodgers won their first and only World Series championship 2-0. The celebration in Brooklyn was unlike anything the borough had ever seen. And at the center of it, finally, a champion was Jackie Robinson. Robinson played one more season in 1956. He was 37 years old, his skills diminishing, his body breaking down. After the season, the Dodgers traded him to their hated rivals, the New York Giants. Robinson refused to report. Instead, he announced his retirement on January 5, 1957. The news was broken exclusively in Look magazine, which paid him $50,000 for the story. He told the magazine his legs were gone. In 10 seasons with Brooklyn, Robinson compiled a career batting average of .311 with 1518 hits, 137 home runs, and 734 runs batted in. He had stolen 197 bases and scored 947 runs. He had led the league in batting once, in stolen bases twice, and had been named to 6 All-Star teams. He had won 1 MVP award, 1 Rookie of the Year award, and 1 World Series championship. He had walked 740 times and struck out only 291 times, a remarkable ratio that spoke to his discipline and patience at the plate. But the numbers only scratched the surface of what Jackie Robinson meant. In 1962, just 5 years after his retirement, Robinson was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame on the first ballot. He was the first black player to receive that honor. He and pitcher Bob Feller were the first players elected on the first ballot since 1936. After baseball, Robinson threw himself into civil rights with the same intensity he had brought to the diamond. He became vice president at Chock-full O' Nuts, a restaurant chain, and he was the first black vice president of a major American corporation. He used his position to improve working conditions for the company's largely black and Puerto Rican workforce. Robinson joined the board of the NAACP, and he chaired their Freedom Fund drive. He spoke at rallies across the country. He was friends with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he supported King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference. In 1963, Robinson and his family attended the historic March on Washington, where King delivered his I Have a Dream speech. That same year, Jackie and Rachel hosted concerts at their home in Connecticut, raising bail money for civil rights activists jailed in the South. In 1964, Robinson co-founded Freedom National Bank of Harlem, a black-owned bank designed to serve African-American communities that mainstream banks had long ignored. Within 3 years, it became the most successful black-run bank in the country. In 1965, he became the first black television analyst for Major League Baseball, working for ABC. Through it all, Robinson never stopped speaking out. As a columnist for the New York Post, he wrote passionately about race, politics, and the unfinished business of American democracy. King himself acknowledged the debt the movement owed to Robinson. "Jackie Robinson made my success possible," King said. "Without him, I would never have been able to do what I did." The years after baseball were not easy ones for Robinson personally. Shortly after retiring, he was diagnosed with diabetes, the same disease that had afflicted his brothers. Despite treatment, his health steadily declined. He lost much of his vision. His hair turned prematurely white. Heart disease began to ravage his body. In 1971, tragedy struck the Robinson family. Jackie Jr., their eldest son, had returned from Vietnam struggling with drug addiction. After years of struggle, he had finally gotten clean and was working to help other addicts. Then, on June 17, 1971, at just 24 years old, Jackie Jr. was killed in an automobile accident. The loss devastated Jackie and Rachel. Robinson's final public appearance came on October 15, 1972 at the World Series, 25 years after he had broken the color barrier. Robinson, now nearly blind, and walking with great difficulty, threw out the ceremonial first pitch. He accepted a plaque honoring the anniversary of his debut. But even in that moment of celebration with his body failing him, he used his platform to push for progress. "I'm going to be tremendously more pleased and more proud," Robinson told the crowd, "when I look at that third base coaching line one day and see a black face managing in baseball." It was a reminder that even after everything he had accomplished, the work was not done. 9 days later, on October 24, 1972, Jackie Robinson suffered a massive heart attack at his home in Stamford, Connecticut. He died that morning. He was 53 years old. His funeral was held at Riverside Church in New York City. Reverend Jesse Jackson delivered the eulogy. Among the pallbearers were Pee Wee Reese and Larry Doby, the man who had integrated the American League just months after Robinson broke the National League barrier. Robinson was buried at Cypress Hills Cemetery in Brooklyn, the borough where he had changed history. Robinson's legacy has only grown in the decades since his death. In 1984, President Ronald Reagan posthumously awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. In 2005, President George W. Bush presented the Congressional Gold Medal to Rachel Robinson in a ceremony at the Capitol. On April 15, 1997, the 50th anniversary of Robinson's debut, Major League Baseball took an unprecedented step. Commissioner Bud Selig announced that Robinson's number 42 would be retired across all of Major League Baseball. No player on any team would ever wear that number again. It was the first time any professional sports league had retired a number league-wide. Robinson remains the only player in baseball history to receive that honor. Today, April 15th, is celebrated as Jackie Robinson Day throughout baseball. Every player, manager, coach, and umpire wears number 42. It is a day to remember not just what Robinson did on the field, but what he meant to the nation. Rachel Robinson, now over 100 years old, has spent the decades since her husband's death preserving and extending his legacy. In 1973, she founded the Jackie Robinson Foundation, which has provided scholarships to more than 1,700 minority students. In 2022, the Jackie Robinson Museum opened in New York City. The movie 42, released in 2013 and starring Chadwick Boseman as Robinson, introduced his story to a new generation. When you think about Jackie Robinson, the statistics matter: the .311 batting average, the 6 All-Star selections, the Most Valuable Player award, the World Series ring. But what made him immortal was something beyond statistics. He was a man who faced hatred and answered with excellence, who endured death threats and responded with dignity, who was told he wasn't good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough, and proved the doubters wrong every single day. He didn't just break the color barrier in baseball, he helped break it in America. His success on the field paved the way for Larry Doby, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and every black player who came after. His courage off the field inspired a generation of civil rights activists who looked at Jackie Robinson and saw that change was possible. As Robinson wrote in his autobiography, published the month he died, "There I was, the black grandson of a slave, the son of a black sharecropper, part of a historic occasion, a symbolic hero to my people. I know that I am a black man in a white world. In 1972, in 1947, at my birth in 1919, I know that I never had it made. But in the struggle to make it, for himself, for his family, for his people, for his country, Jackie Robinson became something rare, a man who truly changed history. Number 42, the first, the bravest, a legend." Like and subscribe for more baseball documentaries. Until next time.